So, dear friends, I'm happy to be once again with you on the screen, and I wish you a good weekend. As you know, as I've said in the last edition of my recording, it's Pastor's Day this weekend. The Pastor's Sunday, we call it. Some call it Vianney Sunday. And surely, as I've explained earlier, it's a special day for our priests, and as we commemorate the feast of John Mary Vianney and think of his humble beginnings, his being unacceptable in the beginning, but at the same time with his humility, simplicity and trust in God, he not only brought the people closer to him by his dealing with them on a personal level, by visiting them, by hearing their confessions, and he was a phenomenon of his time. And today Arch is a very, very special place, not only for priests but people all over the world. And so I have requested you last time that let us celebrate this Sunday as the day of the pastors. Wish your pastors, make them a little happy, make them feel that they are wanted, and their services in the churches, in our missions, are very much appreciated. You know, to be a priest, to continue as a priest is not an easy thing. It's only the grace of God that keeps us going. And many a time perhaps people don't realize it. It's easy to say the priest should be like this, a priest should be like that, he should do this, he should do that. It's easy to say. But when you get into the garb of the priest, I think it's not so easy. I have said it often, when a priest laughs, when a priest enjoys, everybody is with him, and he takes everyone with him. But do you know what happens when a priest cries? When a priest is lonely, when a priest is misunderstood, when a priest is discouraged, perhaps he is alone. Nobody is with him. So therefore let us pray for our priests very specially today on this Pastor's Day in the name of St. John Mary Vianney. Let me take the Gospel of the day. It's the 19th week of the year. The message of today is basically about faith and trust in God. You know, faith and trust in God are the most important elements of our relationship with God and our relationship with anyone else. If I don't trust anybody, perhaps my relationship is already sort of restricted. I don't reveal everything. In today's readings, we find this a beautiful examples of faith and trust in God. The first reading from the book of Wisdom speaks about the faith of our ancestors. Our ancestors trusted in God. They had to, because only God could save them. And God doesn't disappoint them. And that is why their trust in God, their faith in God is given as an example for everyone that followed them down the centuries. In the second reading, the letter to the Hebrews, the author once again refers to whom we can call as the father of faith, Abraham. Abraham is the best example. He lived a devout life. He lived a life that was trusting in God. But then he had his own difficulties. I believe in God. I trusted in God. But what does God give me? My only prayer is to give me a land that is my own and give me a child that can carry on my progeny, my family. But he seems to have been disappointed under both these accounts, and he has no land of his own, no child of his own. And imagine in his ripe old age, when perhaps man doesn't have his full capacity, there are some angels who pass by and tell him that, Abraham, next year you will have a child. And the paragraphs of the book of Genesis say that Sarah was hearing this conversation from behind, from inside the house. And Sarah laughed. How can this be possible? A woman who is beyond the childbearing age, can she ever bear a child? But Abraham trusted. And later on, when Abraham had this child, Sarah begot this particular child, Isaac. They named him Isaac. And the name Isaac means laughter, laughing. A foolish laughing, meaning to say that you can't take God for granted. And what is foolish for us, that a child in old age is not possible to be born, is nothing for God. But the aspect that I would like to stress is the faith of Abraham. The faith of Abraham. And in the Gospel also, in the Gospel of Luke, Jesus gives us once again the important treasure that a person has is faith and trust in God. And this faith and trust in God is so important that Jesus has that beautiful sentence, where your treasure is, there your heart. Many a time we know that in our earthly things, if I have some gold in my house, I have kept it in somewhere, and all the time I'm thinking about it. If my treasure is my children, how desperate I am if anything happens to them, my family members. So where your treasure is, there your heart is. And therefore, if your faith and trust in God is such a treasure, you have to protect it. And the parable says you have to protect it like the owner, or rather the servant, who is given charge of certain things in the house, and he has to be ever ready, because the master may come anytime. Just as earlier we heard that a thief can come at any time and rob. So therefore you have to be ready for the master to see that everything is okay. And Jesus ends up the gospel to say that the one whom is given more, and therefore more is expected of him, and the one who is not given much, surely not much can be expected of him. And therefore faith and trust that are these treasures that are given to us in different measures. The children are given a small measure. The elders, the parents, are given in a bigger measure. And perhaps those in responsibility are trusted to do this in faith and charity. And therefore this is a bigger responsibility. So my dear brothers and sisters, let us ask God for this not only gift of faith, but to remain and retain it as a treasure that God has given us. I now pass on to what we have the feast of St. Lawrence this month on the 10th of August. The feast of Lawrence, we have many people who are named Lawrences. And the first Lawrence, or the deacon Lawrence, as he was called at that time of the early church, and he was a deacon. And as a deacon, he was entrusted with the responsibility. He was trusted. He was a man of faith. And therefore, when he was given a charge of what we call the temporal goods of the church, the monies that were collected, the gold that people sacrificed in the early church, it was not important for them. The money was not important. The gold, the properties were not important to them. And there is a beautiful saying that they all gathered and kept these things at the foot of the apostles for them to use it for the poor. And the apostles, since, as we have seen in the chapter 6 of the Acts of the Apostles, since they could not be busy with all these things, they appointed deacons. and one of the deacons was Lawrence. And so he was entrusted with all this gold and all this one, all things of worth that were given to him. And Lawrence not only kept count of them, but distributed to the poor. Distributed to the poor. And so in this persecution of the earliest times, Lawrence was also caught. He was brought before the authorities and said that, what's the punishment that you have? That since you have become a Christian, you are to be thrown to those animals. And Lawrence said, and they wanted Lawrence all the more because they said that he has got a lot of wealth, he has got a lot of things, and therefore he's a big catch. And Lawrence told them, I have no difficulty, I shall surrender myself, but just give me 3 days before I can come back and report to you. And they said yes. And when he came back after 3 days, he comes with a big group of poor people who have come with him. And the authorities are very surprised and say, what is happening? Where are those gold? Where are the things that you had? And he says, these people, these are my treasures. These are my people who are poor, with whom perhaps I have already shared, and I have nothing else. I am here. And they were furious. They not only burnt him this side and that side, he was martyred in a very, very crude way. But then that's Lawrence to tell us that ultimately those in responsibility, we have also to think of the poor. We have to share our things with the poor, and ultimately our treasures are the poor themselves. 10th of August happens to be also the birthday of Archbishop Emeritus Bernard Morris. He's 81 years. He's also our treasure, I could say. He came to this Archdiocese in 2005. Earlier, he was there for almost 7 to 8 years in Belgaum, and I succeeded him in Belgaum, and I know that what a beautiful execution of things that he has done there. A lot of missions that he opened. For the first time, the church went to the missions, and the missionaries were so happy, and what he has done that time, not only the missions are progressed, and the schools and institutions are reaching out to the poor. I can say of a place called Haveri. Of course, now it's a district headquarters. And for the first time, when our priests and nuns went there, people did not know who is a priest, who is a Christian. That was not even a Christian symbol there. And Archbishop Bernard that time opened a mission, opened a school called the Sisters of Charity there. And today, I have visited it a few months back, almost 200, 300 people bustling in the church, and it's a big parish. That's how perhaps Archbishop has got that love for missions. And here in Bangalore, he has been Archbishop for almost 13 years, and he has done so many things, built so many churches, built so many presbyteries, institutions, the schools, the infrastructure that we have, we owe it to him. This own building, our structure of what's called the Palana Bhavan, it's a miracle. People are praising and saying that we have such a facility for this, all the commissions, and recently the 3 cardinals and 15 bishops and so many from all over Karnataka and India were here for the synod, and you could see from their speaking to say that we are fortunate to have this Palana Bhavan, which is a monumental tribute to Archbishop Bernard. We pray for him, we wish him many more years, and he is a big support for me also in my pastoral work here in this Archdiocese. Archbishop Emeritus Bernard Morris, we wish you a very happy birthday and pray for God's blessings on you for many more years to come. I also am requested to speak about, the month of August is the month of freedom, we can't call it. The Independence Day comes just in the middle of the August, middle of the month, and as we celebrate the freedom of the nation, we also celebrate the freedom or liberty of Mother Mary. That's a beautiful theme also. that Mother Mary embodies in herself what we call the freedom. Not only freedom of the nation, freedom of the person, but freedom for us in a heavenly realm and understanding that we can think of. So first of all, I shall take in this every session that I have in the month of August to speak about freedom, freedom in the Bible, freedom of the country, the freedom perhaps with Mother Mary enjoys, and the different aspects of freedom in the different recordings that I am doing here. Today let me speak about freedom in the Bible. First of all, what is freedom? The word freedom, like the word love, is used and misused very much. Some people would say that freedom means I can do anything, I can do everything, I can do whenever I can do whatever I want. I have to come for class at 9 o'clock, I'll see that I can reach or not. I am free to come, I am free to do anything, I am free to throw it out. This is not freedom. The real freedom is the definition of freedom that I have just sort of noted down. It's the power or the right to act or think without hindrance. And so freedom has got two meanings. The word freedom from Greek, as we derive it, has got two meanings. One is liberate, and secondly, exempt from liability. We know what is liberate. Liberate is to make someone free. If someone is imprisoned, I try to liberate him. If someone is tied up physically, I try to release the bonds. If someone is perhaps mentally blocked and sort of tied up, I try to release him in some way. And so freedom is liberation. The Old Testament, the whole book of Exodus speaks of liberation. Moses liberating the people of Israel who were slaves in Egypt into the freedom land that's called the Promised Land, Israel. And the whole book speaks about liberation. And liberation is understood or misunderstood even by the Jews of that time. They grumble. They grumble at every occasion, at every block that they come. When they come to the desert and they see that nothing is there for them to eat, but God is giving them manna from the top, but still they are not happy. And when the Red Sea, perhaps when they come there, they say that, and they see the enemies pursuing them from behind. Why do we have to die here? We could have died in Egypt itself. Who wanted to be liberated? Who wanted to be free? But Moses has a plan. And many a time in this freedom struggle or freedom liberation, everything is not known to us. In our own country, when we had the liberation of our country from the British, perhaps many things that our freedom fighters suffered, they didn't give up. If they gave up, perhaps we would not be free, and therefore it explodes gradually and opens up slowly. In the New Testament, we have beautiful theme of freedom also. As you know, in the New Testament, we speak of freedom from and freedom to. I shall explain. Freedom from, first of all, freedom from our own sinfulness, our slavery, our bondage. And John chapter 8 verse 36 says, if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed. Which means if Jesus sets you free, you are perfectly free. If you surrender yourself to Jesus, to God, you are perfectly free. And not only that, you are free from bondage of sin. You are no longer bonded to your past, but Jesus takes care of your life. He is the Savior. He is the one who leads it. Once again, the theme of the Gospel of today, if you trust in Him, if you have faith in Him. And therefore, if you have accepted Jesus in your life, you are certainly free. Secondly, I said that it is also freedom to do something. You are, many a time people are so much constrained that I am not free to do this, I am not free to do that. I am not free in my house to, let us say, to do my own things as I think that I should do. Many of our people are even constrained and tied up. There was a woman who came to me and said, I'm newly married. I have gone to my husband's house, but I have no freedom there. My mother or mother-in-law says that no, this has to be done in this way, that has to be done this way. I would like to decorate my house in this way, but somehow I feel myself constricted or restricted in that way. I'm just giving a small example. It could happen to us. And so when we have said that Christ has set us free, He has freed us, I would say many things. I mentioned just 3 things for the sake of time. First of all, freedom to live. Jesus gives us freedom to live. And freedom to live means I live my life fully. I live my life as God has created me. I live my life as a good Christian. I live my life doing whatever good that I can do. Secondly, freedom to love. I'm free to love. And first of all, love my God. To fall in love with God. If you read the stories of the saints, how desperately they fall in love with Jesus. I have spoken last time of St. Ignatius of Loyola. This man who had so much vanity in him, so much vain glory in him, but when he falls in love with Jesus, starting with those scriptures, there's no looking back. There's no looking back. And therefore, he is fallen in love with Jesus. And this love for Jesus orients him for love for others. So therefore, we have freedom to love others. There are so many persons, they find it difficult to love in the family. People are married, people have their families, but still they have difficulties. They have difficulties to love each other. And how difficult it would be if you cannot love your persons in your own house and family. How difficult it would be to love others outside. But it could be the other way also. There are some people who love others and do so many charities, but then they can't stand, they can't tolerate the persons in their own house and families too. Thirdly, freedom to act or freedom to serve others. It's beautiful. God gives us grace. God gives us energy. God gives us nerves, as it were, to be active and to be in the service of others. I am a teacher, let us say. And perhaps if I can teach my children the best, not only those who can afford, those who can perhaps be educated, but those who are poor, those who have no intelligence, if I sit a little longer to them and teach. I am a doctor. I have my duty from 9 to 5 or so, but then someone comes, knocks on my door for a desperate case, to reach out for the poor in so many ways. And therefore, this is freedom to do good. I am the boss to do good. Just as the devil speaks of freedom to do evil, Jesus, who has set me free, gives me freedom to good. I end with a small quotation from Corinthians chapter 3 verse 17. Now the Lord is the Spirit, and where there is the Spirit of the Lord, there is freedom. I repeat once again. Now the Lord is the Spirit, and where there is the Spirit of the Lord, there is freedom. So my dear friends, in this month of August, when we sort of constantly strike on the word of freedom, we read the word freedom, we celebrate the freedom of our country. Let us also pray for each one of us that we may be really free. And as I said, Jesus makes us free. I take the question now that is before me. I read the question. What is the role of the grandparents after baptism? Many forget why they become godparents. There is no mention of godparents in the Bible. Please explain why they should be godparents. I have spoken once before as to the need of godparents for baptism, and the godparents, as I said, the word God adds sanctity to another set of parents who take the responsibility at the time of baptism. Not only the parents are there, the parents are normal, parents are natural, but there is a third set of umpires, if you want to call it in that way, a set of parents who come and want to take care of the child, very specially in your spiritual and other pastoral matters. And therefore, these parents who have chosen this path to be godparents at baptism, it's not just a fashion, a photo opportunity, or perhaps just to make the family happy and then disappear. The godparents have a great role. The godparents have this role of looking after the child, keeping an eye on the child that they have sponsored for baptism, so that the child grows up in faith, wisdom before God and men. And for that, perhaps a continuous sort of a contact with your godchild, perhaps not only when they are small to give them gifts, but also to establish this spirit of sort of reconciliation and understanding, so that whenever the child has problems, perhaps the parents are always there, and many of the children may have solved their problems confessing or other relating to their parents, but some who find difficult can also relate to another parent, the godparent. And the godparents also see to that perhaps there is something missing in the family. They are poor, they cannot at once put the child for school or studies or books or anything. So help the child also in this way. This is a constant relationship that goes up. The godparents are forever. I have seen that some of the godparents who are so happy at the moment of the confirmation of the child, the communion of the child, the marriage of the child. One godmother told me, I told my godchild that before he gets married, I have to see the girl, I have to see that she's a good girl for you, that she's a good character girl for you, all these things. I was happy because this godmother has known what is her responsibility, a godfather also helping a child. So this is the way we can help each other, and especially carry on the role of godparents, not just at the time of baptism, but prolong it for many, many years to come, to forge a relationship between the godchild and the godparent. God bless you. I wish you well today. Please pray for me as I pray for you too.
My dear friends, please do share your feedback, your impressions, and your experience, or send a message to the email address as you find on the screen, archdblr@gmail.com. And you also have the phone number, the mobile number, wherein you can send your message or WhatsApp on this number. Archbishop is ready and waiting to answer your questions. If you have any question, any doubt, any uncertainty, or there's no clarity upon something, you can ask those questions, and with the discretion that the Archbishop will surely answer these questions in the weekly feature Shepherd's Voice. Thank you, and we look forward to the next episodes.